Long before history was written, long before empires and kings, there were people who lived only by what the earth could provide. These were the first Homo sapiens, the ancestors of all of us today. They lived in small groups, moving across the land in search of food, water, and shelter. Survival was not guaranteed. It was a daily struggle against hunger, predators, and the forces of nature. The men, women, and children of prehistory did not have cities. They did not farm or raise animals, at least not yet. They were hunter-gatherers. Every meal was earned through skill, patience, and teamwork. For food, they relied on two things: what they could find and what they could catch. Women and children often searched for wild plants, berries, nuts, roots, and edible leaves. They learned which plants were safe and which were deadly. Knowledge passed down from generation to generation. The men, though not always, often took on the dangerous task of hunting. But hunting was not easy. Imagine standing on an open plain with nothing but a sharpened wooden spear. Before you, a massive bison grazes, 10 times your size, strong enough to kill you with a single strike. How could a small band of humans hope to bring it down? The answer was cooperation. Prehistoric humans learned to hunt together. They studied the movements of animals, watched their habits, and developed strategies. Sometimes they drove herds of animals toward cliffs, forcing them to fall. Other times they set traps, dug pits, or surrounded their prey. Each hunt was dangerous, but when successful, it provided enough meat to feed an entire tribe for days. Fire made the hunt even more valuable. With fire, meat could be cooked, safer to eat, easier to chew, and filled with energy. Fire also meant they could keep predators away from their camps at night. Wolves, lions, and bears all feared the flames. Yet humans were not only hunters. Gathering was just as important. In fact, most of the calories early humans ate came from plants. Roots dug from the ground, wild fruits found in the forest, seeds carried in pouches. These foods were reliable when hunting failed, and they kept the group alive during lean times. To collect and prepare food, they made tools. Stones were chipped into sharp blades, useful for cutting meat or scraping hides. Bones became needles, used to stitch together clothing made of animal skins. Even wood was shaped into spears, digging sticks, and clubs. These tools were not just objects, they were the difference between life and death. Still, danger was everywhere. Imagine walking through tall grass, searching for berries, and hearing the growl of a predator behind you. Early humans had no metal weapons, no walls, no guns. Their protection came only from fire, sharp stones, and each other. To survive, they had to be brave, clever, and united. But despite the hardship, life was not only struggle. Around the fire at night, people shared stories. They learned from each hunt, remembered the best gathering places, and passed on their knowledge. These small groups were more than families. They were communities. And slowly, through thousands of years of trial and error, humans became masters of survival. The story of hunting and gathering is not just the story of food. It is the story of how humanity itself began. Food gave our ancestors the strength to survive each day. But finding something to eat was only half of the battle. The world they lived in was harsh. Cold winds, violent storms, and predators lurking in the darkness. To endure, early humans needed more than courage. They needed shelter. In the earliest times, humans did not build great structures. They turned to what nature offered. Caves, hollowed cliffs, and rock overhangs became the first homes. Inside these natural shelters, they found protection from rain and snow and from the sharp teeth of predators outside. But caves were not always nearby. For groups traveling across vast plains, they had to create their own refuge. So they learned to build. With branches, leaves, and animal hides, they constructed simple huts. In colder regions, bones from giant animals, like mammoths, were used as frames, with skins stretched tightly across them. These shelters were temporary, built quickly and abandoned when the group moved on. Prehistoric humans were nomads, always following the herds of animals and the changing seasons. Shelter alone was not enough. Night brought another enemy: darkness. Without light, every shadow could hide a predator. Without warmth, freezing winds could claim lives. The discovery and control of fire changed everything. At first, fire was a mystery, something that came from lightning strikes or burning forests. But over time, humans learned to capture it, to keep the embers alive, and eventually to make fire themselves. Sparks struck from flint stones or friction from rubbing wood could bring flame, and with flame, life transformed. Fire turned raw meat into cooked meals, safer and easier to digest. It warmed cold caves, allowing humans to survive in frozen landscapes. It kept wolves, lions, and bears at a distance, their glowing eyes watching but never daring to come too close. Around the fire, communities gathered. Flames gave light to the darkness, and with light came stories. Elders told tales of past hunts, mothers soothed children with songs, and the flickering glow cast shapes on cave walls that stirred imagination. Some believe this is where human culture truly began, around the fire when survival gave way to storytelling. But fire was also a tool of power. With torches, hunters could drive animals into traps. With controlled burns, they cleared land, making it easier to find plants and hunt game. Fire became not just protection, but strategy. Imagine a cold night, tens of thousands of years ago. A small group of humans huddles inside a cave. The wind howls outside, snow falls thick on the ground. In the center of the cave, a fire crackles, casting warmth and comfort. Children sleep under animal hides, their bellies full of roasted meat. The hunters sharpen their stone tools by the firelight, preparing for tomorrow. For now, they are safe. Shelter and fire gave early humans more than survival. They gave stability, a place to gather, and the first taste of security. With food, shelter, and fire, humanity laid the foundation for everything that would come next. And soon, these same people would begin to express something new, something beyond survival. They would create art, carve symbols, and paint stories on the walls of caves, leaving behind the first traces of human imagination. In the heart of prehistoric life, beyond the daily search for food, lived something more powerful than survival: love. These early humans didn't just band together for protection. They formed the first families, bound by affection, care, and an unbreakable devotion to one another. Picture a mother gently cradling her infant, humming soft melodies as firelight dances across their faces. Her touch is tender, protective, the same loving gestures mothers make today. A father teaches his young son not just how to hold a spear, but patiently guides small hands, celebrating each small success with pride and encouragement. Children weren't just future hunters or gatherers, they were treasured. Parents played with them, making toys from sticks and stones. They laughed together, told stories, and shared quiet moments of pure joy. When a child fell and cried, the whole family rushed to comfort them, offering not just healing, but endless reassurance and love. Elders weren't kept alive merely for their knowledge. They were cherished as grandparents. Children would curl up beside them, listening wide-eyed to tales of adventure and wonder. These storytelling moments weren't just education. They were precious family time, filled with laughter, amazement, and the deep bond between generations. Families shared everything, not just food, but dreams, fears, and hopes. When someone was hurt, the family didn't just tend wounds. They offered comfort, stayed close through long nights, and celebrated together when healing came. They mourned losses deeply and rejoiced in each birth as a miracle. Even in their burial practices, love shone through. Families laid their departed to rest with favorite belongings, flowers, and careful arrangement, gestures of eternal love that transcended death itself. Around evening fires, families didn't just survive another day, they created memories. They sang together, danced, and held each other close under starlit skies. In these tender moments, surrounded by those they loved most, early humans discovered that the greatest strength wasn't in their tools or shelters, but in the unbreakable bonds of family. Love, not survival, was humanity's greatest discovery. And in these prehistoric families, we see the beginning of everything that makes us truly human: compassion, devotion, and the profound joy of belonging to each other. By firelight, prehistoric humans did more than survive. They began to dream. And from those dreams came the first sparks of culture, art, ritual, and belief. Some of the oldest evidence of human imagination can still be seen today, hidden deep within caves. In places like Lascaux in France, Altamira in Spain, and Chauvet, magnificent paintings stretch across the walls. Herds of bison, galloping horses, towering mammoths, all brought to life with pigments made from crushed minerals, charcoal, and animal fat. These images are tens of thousands of years old, yet they still feel alive, as if the artists had just put down their brushes. But why did they paint? Some believe it was to honor the animals they hunted, asking for success in the chase. Others think it was a way of teaching, showing young hunters what to expect. Perhaps it was simply expression, the human need to create and share beauty. Whatever the reason, these paintings reveal something profound. Our ancestors were not only thinking about the world, they were imagining it. Art was not limited to caves. Small carvings have been discovered, shaped from bone, ivory, or stone. Some depict animals, others show human figures, and some represent fertility, like the famous Venus figurines with exaggerated features, symbols of life and survival. These objects were carried from place to place, tokens of meaning in a harsh world. Music, too, played its part. Archaeologists have found flutes carved from bird bones, over 30,000 years old. Imagine the sound of those first notes echoing in a cave as firelight flickered. Music may have bound communities together, just as stories did, creating rhythm, memory, and shared emotion. Belief also took shape in these early times. Burials with tools, ornaments, and even flowers suggest that prehistoric humans saw death not as an ending, but as a passage. Perhaps they believed in spirits of animals, in ancestors watching from beyond, or in unseen forces guiding their lives. We cannot know their exact thoughts, but the care they showed tells us that meaning was deeply important to them. Art and belief were more than decoration or ritual. They were survival of a different kind. They gave hope, identity, and purpose. A hunter who risked his life for the group could see his story painted on the wall. A mother could comfort her child with a song. A community could gather to honor the dead, finding strength in unity. Picture this, a cold evening in a cave. The fire glows, casting long shadows. On the wall, fresh paint glistens, red ochre and black charcoal forming the outline of a great bison. Children watch as an elder explains the hunt to come, pointing to the shapes as if the wall itself carried wisdom. In that moment, imagination and reality blend together. The hunt has not yet happened, but in their minds, it already lives. This was the birth of culture, the moment when humans became more than creatures of instinct. They became storytellers, dreamers, creators. Their art connected them to one another, to their ancestors, and perhaps even to something greater beyond the firelight. And it was this spark of imagination that would carry humanity forward. For with every story told, with every song sung, with every handprint on the cave wall, our ancestors were shaping not just their survival, but their future. The age of hunting and gathering was more than a struggle for food. It was the beginning of what makes us human, the ability to see the world not only as it is, but as it could be.
For hundreds of thousands of years, human life was defined by hunting and gathering.
Long before the first villages, before the first farms, before the first written words, this was how our ancestors lived.
And though the world has changed beyond recognition, the legacy of those times still lives within us. The hunter-gatherer way of life demanded adaptability. To survive, early humans had to understand the land, the animals, and the seasons. They read the stars and the weather, noticed the slightest change in animal tracks, remembered the paths to hidden water sources. Their minds became sharp, not through books or schools, but through experience and necessity. That same adaptability, the ability to solve problems, to adjust to challenges, remains one of humanity's greatest strengths today. It also demanded cooperation. Alone, no one could have survived against mammoths or lions. But together, with shared effort and trust, they could thrive. In every hunt, in every gathering expedition, teamwork was essential. The roots of human society, the reason we live in communities, build families, and create nations, can be traced back to those first small tribes who learned that survival was stronger when shared. Hunter-gatherers also gave us the first sparks of creativity. Their cave paintings, carvings, and music were not luxuries. They were survival of the spirit. They gave hope, inspired courage, and passed knowledge from one generation to the next. Without imagination, survival would have been empty. With it, humanity began to dream of what lay beyond the horizon. But perhaps the most important legacy is this: hunter-gatherers lived in balance with the natural world. They took only what they needed, followed the cycles of the earth, and respected the animals they hunted. To them, life was fragile, precious, and deeply connected to nature. In our modern world of cities and technology, it is easy to forget this truth, but it still flows in our blood.
Imagine standing where they once stood, on an open plain, the wind in your face, the smell of smoke from the fire, the sounds of your people around you.
There are no skyscrapers, no cars, no machines, only earth, sky, and survival. Every meal is earned, every story shared, every life deeply tied to the land. From this way of life, humanity eventually moved forward. They learned to plant seeds, to domesticate animals, to build permanent homes. Farming replaced foraging, villages replaced camps, and history began to be written. But none of it would have been possible without the lessons learned in the age of hunting and gathering. Even today, echoes of that time remain. The thrill of teamwork, the warmth of fire, the awe of storytelling, the rhythm of music, these are not modern inventions. They are gifts from our prehistoric ancestors, passed down through countless generations. So when we look back at the age of hunter-gatherers, we are not just looking at a distant past. We are looking at ourselves, the foundations of who we are, the first steps of the human journey. Because in every cave painting, in every ancient tool, in every burial site, we see the truth. Long before civilization, before kingdoms, before history itself, humanity was already building something greater than survival. They were building humanity itself. The story of the hunter-gatherers is not over. It lives in us, in our creativity, in our cooperation, and in our endless curiosity about the world. It is a story that began tens of thousands of years ago, and one that still continues today.